Hi, Vismay. Hi, Apeksha.
Hey Shreya, how are you?
Good. How are you? Okay, let's see. Okay, perfect. It's too bright, but should work. Um, would it be okay? Okay. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. It would not feel like that I'm talking to the screen, so I like
yeah,
that.
sure.
Perfect. How's your day been? Is it, yeah, almost afternoon, right?
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. I'm also in the PST time zone. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Maybe I'm looking at something else. Give me 1 second.
yeah, almost like morning, but it's a bit dark today. Like there's some kind of storm going on. So yeah,
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that California had any storm. I mean, I can't say that Seattle is always like that, storm or no storm. It's always gloomy. I definitely need this on my probably my forehead explaining, but I definitely need a light to make sure people see you. Okay, perfect. What do you think we're doing here?
so based on the brief from Apeksha, you are gonna go through my resume, ask me some probing questions,
Mm-hmm.
see how well I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then once you identify, hey, these are the areas where I need to prepare more or like polish the answers, you're gonna basically give me some guidance on like how to do that. So I'm able to crack the interviews.
Okay, perfect. I like that. So you have a great idea of what is happening. So we'll do like a small mock interview kind of thing where I'll observe, judge everything related to verbal, non-verbal cues, of course, your storytelling piece of it, and how does it land on me as a coach and as a recruiter. And then I'll give you the feedback of how to improve it. And then we'll kind of redo that again if we have time at the end for like 10 or 20 minutes again, a couple of those questions. Because it's recorded, it's good. You don't have to take notes. I probably will take notes so that I can give you live feedback.
Okay.
So anytime that you're speaking and I'm taking notes, believe me, my ears are still there, and I'm just trying to be critical with you.
Okay.
That being said, why am I here? Because I'm a recruiter. I have been a coach for a while, and I love storytelling piece of it. And I, as a recruiter, understand that even if you know everything and you're not delivering it well, you're not just going to get that interview, right? Because
Yes.
you're not going to create that impact. And 25 minutes, 45 minutes are not enough to know a person. So you need to be extremely impactful in those words. Okay, so that's an idea. I can share the questions with you once we're done, not before that, of course, because then I would just choose for like what questions do I want to ask from and all of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's just give me 1 second so I feel a little bit more arranged. Okay, perfect. Because we're here, so let's start with tell me about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi. So I'm Vismay Patel. I'm located in the heart of Silicon Valley in Mountain View, California.
Mhm.
Uh, I have I'm a seasoned product manager with 5+ years of experience in the industry. In terms of my educational credentials, I have both my bachelor's and master's degree in computer science, giving me like in-depth expertise in the tech domain. On top of that, I'm also certified in agile product management practices, including widely accepted certificates like CSPO and CSM. Currently, I'm a product manager at Amazon Music, where I'm leading the development of a new platform where we are supporting capabilities for legal contracts, ingestion, royalty calculation, and payments processing.
Mhm.
Uh, in my previous role or like previous org within Amazon, I was spearheading the development of a new issue resolution platform supporting 2+ million sellers on Amazon.com.
Mhm.
Overall, in my day-to-day life, I collaborate with cross-functional teams across the globe, and where I'm actively involved in like various phases of product development, starting from like user and market research to like attending tech design reviews, finalizing UI UX designs, analyzing the experimentations once we roll out small incremental changes,
Mhm.
and then like crafting communication plan, and then making sure the rollout is smooth. Throughout my tenure, I have demonstrated ability to execute clear product strategies by not just working on product increments, but also developing 0 to 1 products. So that's a brief about myself, but feel free to ask me any specific questions.
That's great. Thank you so much for that rundown. And I can only, imagine completing or summarizing all these years of experience within, let's say, 2 minutes is difficult. So I really like that. Now, give me an idea because you just spoke about that you've been currently working on Amazon. So give me an idea or talk about one of the projects that you were either leading or you're working on currently, and what are the major challenges in that project?
Sure, sure. I'm just taking a few seconds to like gather my thoughts. Okay, so let me tell you about this project that I'm currently working on at Amazon Music. As I said, it's a new platform which integrates both legal contracts ingestion as well as like the royalty calculation and payments part of the piece. Earlier, before I joined, we had two separate systems where we're using one tool or one platform to ingest legal contracts. So let's say whenever Amazon goes into an agreement with some kind of record label or like any charting company, we have really lengthy legal contracts with complex language where every detail of the deal is mentioned in the contract, like how much percentage of the revenue share Amazon is going to pay to the customer, what are the terms and conditions, what if we don't deliver on time, what are the penalties. So we had one system in place that was not up to like the Amazon standard. There were a lot of errors. On top of that, because we were using two different systems, whenever we were passing on the data from the contracts to the royalty calculation engine, there were a lot of discrepancies, often resulting in errors which were very hard to notice. So we'll run through the entire life cycle, and once we come to the payment, we'll figure out, okay, this is a huge red flag. We are not supposed to make this large of a payment to this category of sellers. So now we are working on integrating that uh, entire process into a new platform. So it's a challenging process because I have to like work with a lot of different teams. Each domain, like legal contracts, royalty calculation, the payment processing, is owned by different ST teams. So I have to make sure that everyone is aligned and we are on the same page, even from the design phase. So yeah, that's the project that I'm currently working on.
Okay. And then what do you think is the most difficult part of being a technical product manager?
Sure. Yeah. Again, I'm just taking a few seconds to gather my thoughts. Um, I think the most difficult part of being a technical product manager has to be with sometimes driving alignment on like the implementation that we should take or like advocating for my team's behalf. So because the engineers that I work with, they are dedicated to developing the product and they don't necessarily have the time to engage in all the different discussions that goes on around strategy or like what exactly has to be done. So sometimes I'm the face of my engineers as well as my customers. So whenever I'm pitching a specific solution, a lot of times there's some pushback from leadership. It may be like senior engineers, senior SDMs. So being a technical product manager, I am able to put my point, which is kind of coming from the agreement that I have with my own team. A lot of times there are like questions or like there is pushback and they want to engage in very technical discussions. Now I have some idea of what's happening with my team and the reason we chose this product, but at the same time I'm not able to dive into like the exact technical details. So I think that's a challenging part probably in the beginning of the project, but once we move forward, I'm able to increase my knowledge about, okay, this is what's happening, like this is the exact technical concept or like the reasoning why we are going this way. So I think that's one of the challenging parts.
Okay. And then give me an idea of, let me put it another way. How do you prioritize the features and the enhancement or the changes that you need to do once the product roadmap has been drafted? So what happens when, while you're already working on a product, now you think that the roadmap needs to be updated? How do you approach that?
Sure. Okay. So are we talking about a phase where product is already rolled out, folks are using it, and then we are kind of like moving forward and refining it as we go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just take it first. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So okay, yeah. So I would say Amazon being a data-driven company, whenever we are, even before launching a product, we do a lot of experimentations and we record that data. And once the product is launched, as a product manager, my job is to make sure that we are observing how it's doing. We are capturing the right feedback from our users and customers. So I would definitely have some matrices defined for my product, which will keep me updated on like how it's doing, like on a day-to-day basis. So I can measure those matrices on, let's say, a weekly or monthly basis. On top of that, a lot of times whenever we're developing something at Amazon, being frugal, we want to pitch that product to different other organizations so that Amazon doesn't spend its money like on third-party products. So during a lot of these sessions where we're pitching our product, we'll get very crucial feedback from like very experienced folks. And a lot of times that's basically something that we are looking for. So I'll also incorporate that. On top of that, we do have regular surveys. So let's say if it's a technical product, or depending on the right audiences, we have our beta testing in like specific programs within Amazon where we roll out surveys for like X number of users. So I think that's another good input for me. And then we also have our, I would say, quarterly and monthly business reviews where we are kind of showing the performance of the specific product to the org that owns that product. So we get feedback from our own senior leadership. So I think incorporating all of this will give me a good idea of, okay, what has to be done. Now take I'll kind of keep that in one bucket, and then I'll kind of cross match it with the organizational goals. Because every quarter we have a specific list of goals where we are heading. Because we have X number of problems, but our organization has a strategy. Hey, this is the direction we're taking, and these are the things we're prioritizing. So I think kind of cross matching both of these will give me a good idea of out of all that has to be done, this should be prioritized. So I think that's a good starting point. I'll basically take it like that.
Okay, perfect. And then you spoke a lot about feedback in this one. So give me an idea, how do you tackle personal feedbacks, either it's giving or receiving? And when I say personal, that means within the team and the professional growth. How do you tackle those? And then if you can talk about an example.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm just taking a few seconds to think of like a suitable example from my experience. Uh, okay. So I would say when it comes to feedback or having hard conversation, I think it's important to focus on the actual problem rather than like criticizing the person. So my best strategy is to like, given that everyone has a defined role, it's a defined and they have probably defined deliverables on like this is what you have to deliver for the project. And whenever I see someone who's not delivering up to the mark, and let's say a lot of times they'll get that feedback from their peers or their own managers, because everyone is like kind of, the work is interdependent, and like if someone is not performing consistently, they'll get some feedback. But let's say when I run into a situation when someone is not performing well, and then that kind of is hindering the progress of the product that I'm leading,
Mm-hmm.
I'll first of all try to focus on the exact problem, that this is what's happening, and I'll try to kind of be objective about it. I'll probably get some points or like some examples where I think they are not delivering up to the mark.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I'll have a conversation with the person, just explain that this is what's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
first, before jumping to conclusions, I'll try to see what they have to say. And then a lot of times it happens that the person is doing their best, but there is some dependency on some other system or some upstream dependency for which they are not able to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then probably I'll go ahead and like have some kind of a plan with that specific upstream team or like any tool that they're using where they're having problems. So I'll try to support them so that it doesn't happen. But let's say if it's not some dependency, it's just the person who's not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are able to accept it, that, hey, okay, it's not up to the mark, then again, like my strategy would be to just help them figure out how to like make them perform on the level. And one of the example that I can give you is I was leading a project where I had to measure how my like the specific solution that I had implemented, how it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I raised the request to the BA team or like the specific BA that I was working with that, hey, I want to measure these matrices over last 6 months and like break, slice and dice the data in this way.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting the results within 2-3 days because we already had the matrices defined. It shouldn't take more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out I still didn't have data for about a week. So a week had passed by. I had briefly checked in with the BA that, hey, what's the status? They kept promising me that just, yeah, give me one more day, I should be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the data wasn't delivered. And I wasn't able to present some of my, I would say, report to my senior management because those matrices were missing. So I thought, okay, this is something that I have to address. So I had a talk with that specific person.
Mm-hmm.
I just pointed out this was the deliverable and you were not able to deliver it. Like, can you tell me a bit more why this happened? It turned out that the specific tool that they're using or like the data source that they were relying on, the upstream team had some issues. So the data was consistently delayed and they did not have a specific strategy or they were not able to figure out the root cause. So
Mm-hmm.
the person explained that that's the reason he wasn't able to give me a right estimate. And he just kept saying, okay, just give me some more time. So I think this is one of the easiest situations. I would say I was able to clearly understand, okay, this is the issue. And I did not have to like coach them, but I definitely like mentioned this to my senior leadership and made sure that they are talking to the right folks to have some agreement on the SLAs.
Okay. And then tell me, how do you stay updated on the latest technology or like whatever advancement that's happening in the field? And then talk about one of the examples where you've actually used your knowledge and then changed something or enhanced something in the product.
Sure, sure. Okay. Okay. So when it comes to staying up to date, I think there are multiple sources. The way LinkedIn is kind of becoming more like a professional content creation platform. I'm following some of the like leading engineers, designers, like product managers. So that way I'm staying up to date in terms of not just the conceptual technology, but how it's implemented in their organization and like learning by example.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Other ways, just like subscribing to some of the professional blogs by companies like Spotify and like all the major tech companies have their own engineering and design blogs. So where they talk about like how they're implementing specific things. And then, of course, like Amazon's own newsletters in terms of AWS, what are the new features in existing products?
Mm-hmm.
One such example is Amazon Q. So earlier, one of my products was integrating Amazon QuickSight. So we were integrating some dashboards on top of like, which was built on top of Amazon QuickSight. Now, at one point in time, I read this announcement that Amazon is launching Amazon Q. So the idea was, let's say, rather than going through UI or like manipulating some buttons to get your matrices, you can just type in natural English that, hey, what's the topmost X matrix in my organization or like who's the top performer? And then QuickSight will kind of populate that visual for you, or in some cases, it will just show you that data. So I thought this is a very good new feature, and like a lot of my users were coming from non-technical background. So I think this makes sense for them because all they care about is like, hey, what's the status of this matrix? If we can deliver it without much UI manipulation or like going through like X number of steps, it will be useful. So I talked with my engineering team to kind of get it prioritized in within next few iterations. I pitched the idea to both my leadership and like get their insights. Like I talked with my engineers and like figure out, okay, it's not really that complex of a task. We need to make some minor changes. And in terms of costs, it was a bit expensive, but I was able to get a green flag from my leadership. So I think with all the approvals, I just basically went ahead and found the right spot for it in my backlog. And I would say within a few sprints, we were able to roll it out.
Okay, great. And then give us an idea of how do you manage the expectation from stakeholders? Because you've been talking a lot about like collaboration, working with different teams, talking to the leadership and all. How do you manage that set of different expectations that you might have relating to a product, relating to what the goal for the quarter looks like?
Sure, sure. Okay. Okay. So I would say in terms of managing the expectations, like the scenarios that I can think of is, let's say if we have something planned and we have the right resources, if our planning is on point, we usually are able to deliver. But kind of managing expectation comes into play where we already have a set course of action and there's some change. Let's say our rival launched something, or like our there's some new breakthrough in the technology, or like just some change in the organizational priorities, right? At that point, a lot of times we have some committed work already, and on top of that, the stakeholders or the leadership is trying to pitch in that, hey, what if we are able to do this? That'll be really nice. So that's one such case where I can think of. So in this scenarios, I would say each company overall has its own set of values. On top of it, like the organization or the team that you're working on, especially in Amazon, we have something like tenets where they're defining these are the things we care about, or these are our guiding principles. So one such principle in Amazon, or like in my teams that I've worked with, is like, will quality is the topmost priority for us. Like we won't compromise quality for the quantity. So I have actually used this tenet in like some of my meetings, or like the prioritization meetings where which I held on a regular basis, where I'll be tackling ad hoc requests. So my approach was simple that, hey, we have X number of resources at this point. If we are not going to increase our resources without burning out our engineers, this is the capacity we have. So prioritizing quality over quantity, if we want to add something in this bucket, we have to figure out our priorities and we have to deprioritize some of the less important work. So that's one way to go about it. And I think managing expectation on a quarterly basis, um, like it kind of comes top down, I would say. Like, so the leadership has some vision, and then your job as a product manager to make sure that you are checking your resources, you are like checking in with your engineers, designers, or like from your experience, past experience with the team, you are able to give the actual picture to the leadership that, hey, this is realistically what we're able to do. If you want, we can kind of push in a bit more, but my job is to make it clear, like I should be giving the transparency to my leadership, so they are in a better position to make those strategic decisions. And that way, everyone is on the same page and we're able to decide like what has to be done.
Right. And then what happens if the team versus the leadership, like you're talking about right now, it does not align with the opinions of each other? How do you handle that situation?
Okay, so you're saying like, let's say some folks in the same level of leadership, they are in disagreement, right?
I would say the kind of the vision of leadership doesn't align with what the idea of the team is, and the team thinks that this is practically not impactful, but then the leadership thinks that we need to do this in this quarter, this is sprint, to make we just need to make this happen. What happens then? There's like a
Sure.
conflict of opinion, between the
Okay.
two parties, one that needs to deliver, one that needs the delivery.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So I would say being a product manager and like having some development experience in the past, I will trust my team, be it designers or like engineers or like architects who are actually delivering the product to come up with the right estimate because they are working on the product day to day. So they are in the best position to figure out, okay, how much of an effort it's going to take. So that's one thing. Now, let's say whenever leadership is in disagreement with whatever the product or like the delivery developers are giving them, my best course of action would be to use data. So let's say whenever we were working on some project, we have some estimation. So we might use that, or let's say we might use some past data. We can compare, okay, if this was like a larger task or smaller task, or realistically, this much time was taken by the developer team to deliver this product. Similarly, let's say we can also take some example in the past where we hushed things and it resulted in like some kind of a broken piece where it actually costed us more money to like fix everything, and then like we also lost some of the customer trust. So I would say putting this data in front of leadership and making them understand that, hey, rushing is fine, but then in the long run it's only going to hurt us, like, and we will be spending more resources. So I think that's one way to go about it. But let's say if they're still in disagreement, they're understanding the point, but they're saying, okay, this, it shouldn't take this long. um, I think the best course of action again would be to consult, because every org or company has some kind of senior or like principal engineers. So let's say as a last step, as a tiebreaker, because even the senior leadership listens to these engineers. They are the like folks who like define the long-term vision. So I wouldn't directly go to them, but I would say I'll kind of slowly start escalating a bit to consult a bit more experienced folk and then like get their feedback. I think at one point, if leadership trusts someone and if they are saying that, okay, the developer team is right, we should not rush this and it should in fact take this much effort. I think that would be able to like diffuse the situation.
All right, perfect. And I think I got a great idea of what we're doing here. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, Yeah, so I want to know, I mean, I'm just going through the format, so it's kind of question I'll be asking. I want to know the product that I'll be working on out of the whole portfolio that you have. So which specific products I'll be supporting, and then if you can tell me a bit more about what stage of development they are in. Are they in research or like it's like a legacy product? And yeah, that's my first question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that'll be a great question for the hiring manager or the team because as a recruiter, I do know a lot of stuff, but I don't know out of confidentiality how much can I actually share with you.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a great question for the team, and then probably they would let you know what project or what piece of it would you be working on.
Sure, sure. So can I, like at this point in the process, can I know a bit more about like what are the next steps or like what the overall timeline looks like for this role?
Yeah, absolutely. We can speak a little bit more about that. But then, do you have a timeline in your mind that works for you or doesn't work for you?
So I'm looking for roles. I would say not actively, but then I'm talking with like a lot of recruiters who are reaching out to me, and then I'm also giving some interviews. So I liked few of the companies, so that's the reason I'm really interested in this company. So that will give me some idea on like when to make decision or like how long to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the interview process from here would be like three more interviews, one with the hiring manager, one more panel round, and then a last interview again with an HR or a team member. So that would probably take, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks from here, one interview each week. Again, depending on if we need to escalate, looking at your situation, looking at team situation. We've been hiring for this for a while, so we definitely need it closed soon as well. But then give me an idea, why are you looking for a new role right now?
Yeah, sure. So it's been about 2 years in Amazon, and like the way things move, like it almost feels like 4.5 years. And at this point, I would say I've kind of hit kind of an upper ceiling where I've exhausted all the opportunities I have,
Mhm.
and I want to try on like something more challenging and exciting, probably in a different industry. That way, I'm able to build my skill set. So yeah, that's one of the like that's the main reason.
Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, let's formally close it. How did you feel about this whole?
Uh, I think I'll be harsh on myself, but I think at least I was able to answer the questions. Like I didn't bombed any of the questions where I was like speechless. So I think that's yeah.
That's a good thing. Okay, and then do you see resemblance of the questions that you usually get asked, or did you feel that you had the nervousness or the jitters that you would usually have with the recruiter, or the experience was like you knew that this is mock, so you were calm about it?
I think I'm at the same level of calmness because like from the process standpoint of view, right? I know that I won't just give one interview and get hired. So it's always like a practice. So
Yeah.
calmness wise, I was okay, but I think even the questions were relevant. Like these were all the questions you get asked.
Yeah.
Like I think the most challenging or like the one question that I didn't think of earlier, because behavioral questions I've given in the past, right? Irrespective of the role, you can draw some similarity from it. But one question kind of I had to think uh, a bit more was like, what's the most challenging part of being a technical product manager? So I
Yeah.
had to like kind of come up with something on the spot.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. And then I have written like feedback for each question. So we'll go by that. And then I've written the questions. I'll remind you because I'm sure like it's very difficult to remember everything what happened the last 30 minutes. So the last was like, how do you manage the conflict between the leadership and the team? You spoke a great deal about like following up with your own team, syncing, and then having a conversation with both the parties and understanding where they are at. And then you started talking about like, you kind of drifted and started talking about just a timeline thing, so you assume the question is only about the timeline, that something needs to be completed in a quarter, in a sprint, and the
Hmm,
team thinks that it can't be done and the leadership wants it to be done. You could have also thought about the difference of opinion about the product itself. That was
hmm.
one piece what I would suggest.
Okay, sure.
Before we get into the whole feedback, I think you were really calm, great eye contact, great hand movements. So it didn't feel like you're not engaged or you're like, like you're extremely nervous. So I like that calm demeanor that you had. I like that you were thinking about the questions before answering them rather than just blabbering. Try reducing that time to 5 seconds. In some questions, you at least took like 23, 25 seconds also. For me, as a recruiter, that was a long period to actually disengage and start looking at other resumes,
Yeah, yeah,
because I can actually probably do that in the back end, right? I can do whatever I want. Honestly, right now we were sitting like this and I didn't want any other distractions. But even if you're sitting with a recruiter who's on phone screen, 23 seconds is a lot.
yeah,
And then before you start taking time, probably say it. I think that's a great question. Give me a couple of seconds to think about it. I'm just gonna note it down. So before you start thinking, I already know it. So right now I can see you on video, so I know that you're thinking, right?
yeah,
But if I can't see you on video, then I don't know what you're doing. So you thought for 5 and 7 seconds, and then you told me that you're thinking, and I was like, yeah, I can see it's obvious, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
probably say it right as you start thinking about it. Um, but overall, great answers, because I like that you were talking about work, you were talking about people. There was a lot of collaboration, stakeholder, what I would really love to hear from a product manager. it wasn't just about this is what I have done. It was a lot about how I'm representing team and leadership both. So I
Yep.
really like that angle in your answers. Okay, going back to the conflict between the leadership and the team. In most of the questions, I did not hear any example. So for me, it was you going round robin about one thing that you said and like trying to make it right for me.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
you did say about like how I would bring in consultation and expertise from other engineers. I love that. I really wanted to hear an example of that.
Example. Okay, makes sense.
And
Yeah.
then as soon as you said that, oh, it can be a timeline difference, I would probably believe the engineers. And I was like, now please give me an example. And you almost for this one, you spoke for three minutes, 15 seconds, and I didn't hear an example. And
Hmm.
I, as a recruiter, was kind of disappointed because now when I write down my notes, I have five things to talk about. You spoke about collaboration, great deal. You spoke about bringing in consultations and an expertise. I really love that. And then you definitely talk a great deal about how you would want to align that with the business goal. So I got three pointers, but I didn't see any example. So
Example.
whenever you think about a behavioral, don't just think that, oh, it's behavioral, I don't have to talk about work. No, actually, it's a very subtle way of asking for your work.
Hmm.
I
Makes
still
sense.
want to hear about all your projects. I still want to hear about the methodologies that you might have used, the processes that you might have used, the stakeholders who were involved in it other than the engineering team, and also the impact of it, right? So for this one, if you would have spoken about it, you can actually spoken about a project that the leadership kind of denied, but the the team wanted to do it and wanted to prove it, and then you represented the team kind of taking the responsibility. I want to make it happen, and then you made it happen, and then you could have talked about business impact, you could have talked about customer impact, you could have talked about how you guys were in the news or it was trending, or it was a cost reduction to the other team or anything like that, because I as a recruiter probably would want to take those numbers to the hiring manager.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay, then we were talking about how do you manage expectations. I think you again talked a good deal about like the situations and talking about the values and the principles of like the company and of the team culture itself. I like that you were talking about whatever the vision of the leadership has, you would want to talk to the team about it. So I think there was great starting point for me there. Again, it went on for 3.5 minutes. I did not see any examples at all. And
Hmm.
then I really, in my mind, felt, okay, I got that. What next now? So because you were extremely calm, because you had good communication and body language, I was very engaged in the conversation. But as a recruiter, I would have definitely wanted to see an example so that again, I can make notes and take it to the hiring manager. Okay.
Yep.
But as a coach, I would say, um, make a list if you don't have. Make a list of all the big projects that you have done,
Got it. Okay.
which includes anything and everything, either for learning, either from data perspective, either from perspective of you doing wonders for the team, or you doing blunders for the team. All of that, create a list of that, and then figure out where can you fit that in an example. Again,
Got it.
by no means I'm saying like we don't overdo keywords in a resume. You're not overdoing your behavioral with examples, but wherever you see, you definitely want to, add an example, even if it's a small, is as short as for a minute. Any
Got it.
behavioral question needs to be answered within 3 minutes. Anything after that, I'm not listening.
Got it.
Especially without an example, I'm absolutely not listening.
Makes
That's one.
sense.
Second, tell me about yourself. Can be anything above 3.5 minutes. Again, depending on how many years of work experience you have. When we'll come to it, I would definitely talk about it. But tell me about yourself can be beyond 3.5 minutes. But any behavioral needs to be three or maximum 3.5. It cannot go beyond that, especially if it doesn't have any example.
Makes
Okay,
sense.
and then we spoke about knowledge. How do you collect knowledge? How do you use that for the advancement of a product? And then you spoke very relatable thing about LinkedIn. LinkedIn being the content creator and influencer space these days. Definitely that. I love that you talked about subscriptions. You talked about newsletters within Amazon. You talked a lot about execution, implementing, learning, and all of that. Again, I didn't see. I think you did talk about an example. I think of Amazon Q side or something, right?
Yeah. Quick side. Yeah.
Quick side, right? So I think I loved that, and I think that was for me was a perfect answer. You took I think 17 seconds to think about it, and then you answered it for 2.5 minutes. So it was a solid answer, time wise, example wise. talking about team and collaboration. So you did speak about your behavior in the beginning, and then you spoke about the example. So for me as a recruiter, that was a power pack answer.
Got
Uh,
it.
Going back to giving and receiving feedback, that one I think you bombed really well. That's sarcasm for you, because now you only spoke about giving feedback. You did not speak anything about receiving feedback,
Yeah.
right? So you assume that feedback is only about giving. So that for me, one thing wasn't great. This was the one that I think you took 27 seconds to think, and I was not sure why, what were you thinking. But I think you did a great job about that, because you were talking about situational analysis, that you speak to both the parties, you try understanding what is happening. And then I loved when you said that everybody knows their work. So if something is not sitting right, then we need to talk about it. So I kind of like that you're not assuming that the person is not great, the situation is not right. Um, I heard the example, I think, but the example came in after 2.5 minutes, when I was almost kind of, oh, the question is done situation. And then you were like, oh, in an example, which again, I thought was a good idea of like getting it back to the example. I would have loved for you to speak about receiving feedback first, then giving it. And I understand from the space you are at, you think about giving it first, then receiving it, but talk about receiving first and then giving. And then definitely talk about how each time you have given or received feedback, you have learned something from it. So in any of the questions, I did not hear any of the learnings at all. So like how this specific situation or challenges made you something better for the next project. I didn't hear that. So that would be a great deal again, because as a recruiter, I would take that oh, you are someone who wants to learn, who's here to create something bigger and then be better for the next project. Right? Okay. How is that? How is all of this sitting now? This is you receiving feedback. How does that sit with you?
No, it's totally on point. Yeah. And I can see like these are actually the gaps because I totally agree. I didn't give examples and I have to work on that and have to like make a solid list so that like on top of my mind, I can just directly relate things. Yeah.
Please do, absolutely. That's the first thing I actually tell my client. Even before my first session, I actually tell them like create the list, because here we're going through a different process, and I know these people are working with you already. But that's the first thing I tell them, and then every question that I ask, they probably script it for me, and then I write down my comments on it, because behavioral has like hundreds of questions.
Yeah.
You cannot honestly touch upon all of these. It is a strategy that you need to follow. Okay. Then we spoke about what happens when you have to update a product feature after it launches, right?
Mm.
Then you spoke a great deal about collaboration matrices, feedback, and then a lot of other things of like what are the high pointers, what's working, what's not working. So I liked all of that. Again, I didn't hear any example. A little disappointing for me, because I really thought that you, as a product manager, would know a lot about this, because once a roadmap is created, once something is launched, I've always seen changes happens, right? This is an everyday thing for you all. So I was thinking that, oh, this is something that would, just be right up on your tip, and then you'll be like, oh, it is here. But then that didn't happen. So again, the growth didn't come, the learning didn't come. You didn't speak at all about what influenced you to push back on that, or what influenced you to adapt that, because there was no example. I couldn't gauge if that was important for you or not. But I also love that you did speak about organizational goals and business relevancy of that, which is, was I think very intellectual of you to share that in a recruiting round. But again, if I would not hear examples, I'm not sure what am I taking to the hiring manager.
Yeah.
That being said, if this would have been a real interview, I would have definitely cleared you to the next one, and I would have given you the feedback that, hey, I would want to hear more about example, or I would have prompted you to give an examples, because I
Makes
think
sense.
that somewhere I've actually asked you like, what happens in this situation? Can you talk about it? You've actually just talking about the situation. You've not talked about in real time example,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Uh, I hope I can read it. Okay, yes. What is the difficulty of being the TPM? Right?
Mhm.
And I think you already said that. What I really loved is that you thought rather than blabbering, and I like when people are like calm in their rounds. You spoke a lot about stakeholder collaboration and team. I like that. You spoke a lot about being representative of something rather than being an individual. um, you talked about balance and all of those things again. You showed your knowledge, and I like that, because you were talking about something which was related to TPM. I didn't hear an example of a challenging moment for you as a TPM. It could have been your shining moment of like, this was extremely challenging. I was a savior. This is what we learned as a team, right? This was your moment to shine because you could have spoken a great deal about, one of the moment or one of the situation when you created some impact as a TPM, right? I I love that you talk a lot about team collaboration and sync and business and all of that. But somewhere during the interview process, I would really want to hear you. Who are you? What were you? Right? What did you do? So if from the whole process, I remove you, does is that going to change the whole idea of the project? Right?
Hmm.
So for an example, this is happening, right? Let's just take it as a collaboration. If you remove me, do you think the process would change if you would be sitting with someone else? Yes, right? Because I am bringing this knowledge, this expertise, the way of delivering. And again, the same thing. If you as a personality would have been changed from this and someone else would be sitting, the whole experience of this project would change, correct?
Yeah.
So I want to see who were you in that project or product or roadmap or team meeting, whatever that means to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, what is one of the projects that you're working on currently and what are the challenges, right? You went on for like 2 to 15ish, 2 minutes 15 seconds, which I think is the ideal time. um, you spoke about the team. What did you do? What's the process? What's the background? What's the actual challenges? So I think I was getting a very good idea of what the challenges look like. And then you started talking about what did you learn, and then how that changed things for you. I've written something. I don't think I can read that. Can't read. But then also you didn't talk. Oh yes, you did talk about the cost reduction piece of it, right? That how right now that you're working on something and maybe that's something else. Wait. And then but then you didn't speak about now because you're switching from that one challenge to something else. What happened with the result? Or is
Hmm.
it an ongoing thing? So now for me, I watched a 2.5 hours of movie. I don't know what the climax is,
Hmm.
right? So I would love to hear that this is an ongoing project. We have implemented this for a couple of months now. This is what the results, this is what we can see as an impact. The trial period is for this much. Or the second approach, we've already done it. We've already implemented what we're talking about. This has been the impact, this has been the learning. And then we as a team had done this to the company. So now take it this way. Any question that you want to approach can have three viewpoints, Vismay. One viewpoint is your viewpoint. Then second viewpoint is team's viewpoint. Third viewpoint would be business's viewpoint, right? And of course, you cannot include all three viewpoints in all three answers, all the questions, but make sure that you have a good mix of all these viewpoints in those 25 to 30 minutes that you'll be conversating with anybody. Some situations make sure that you shine. Some situations make sure that you're talking about collaboration, and some situations make sure that you're talking about leadership and business impact and values and goals and everything.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Promise last 2 minutes and then we'll talk. Okay, then the first question was tell me about yourself. It went on for 2.5 minutes, which I think was very like right on point. It can go on up to 3 minutes, but I think you covered everything really well, so I didn't feel anything missing. But I'll tell you what was missing.
Hmm.
Who are you? What are you currently doing? I like that. Who were you earlier? I like that also. What kind of work that you've done? You spoke about your day-to-day responsibilities. I love that because that gave me a clear idea of from the very beginning, is this my candidate or not? Right. So I
Yeah.
love that piece of it. You spoke about what kind of responsibilities, what kind of work that you have done or you've been doing. Again, a great clarity for me. You did speak about numbers, and I didn't write down numbers, but you did speak about some of the numbers in terms of impact, in terms of product, and all of that. Um, Give me an idea. Were you reading from any script when you were talking about tell me about yourself, or you were not?
I wasn't reading, but I have like this kind of a pitch prepared.
Okay.
So I was
Yeah.
just taking points randomly from it.
Because when your eyes move, and again, it's a video call, so that's why I know. Because when your eyes move, I can see that and I can know. So, like right now, I'm looking in the camera, you would know. Now I'm
Yeah.
looking at you, so you would know, right? So, as soon as I look at you, it's the screen that I'm looking at, which is fine. But as soon as I start moving this and this and this, right,
Yeah.
right? So, you got an idea. So, probably because it was somewhere in the corner of the screen, I could see that you're trying to look somewhere. And then because it was the first question, I was like, what is happening? But I give you a benefit of doubt that it's the first question. The guy is just trying to calm down. It's okay. Because again, whatever you shared was extremely impactful. I would try to keep the sticky note somewhere where it doesn't feel like that my eyes are moving a lot. Or
Makes
try moving them very subtly where you close your eyes and look at it and then you come back to it. You know how you how we subtly stare someone in the room,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
We don't do it like, we don't do that, right? What do we do is like, and
Yeah.
then you come back. So try doing that. If you have something, try a sticky note around the camera, stick it there, and then subtly look at it, and then subtly close your eyes and come back to it while you're having a conversation. Because and that's the only answer I could actually feel it. I didn't feel it most of them because maybe I was busy taking notes, or maybe I gave you that benefit of doubt that it's okay, the guy is just calming down. But I
Yeah.
could feel it, so let's not do that. I did not hear that who are you for me and what are you going to do for my company when
Mm.
you're talking about only about yourself, right? So I heard a great deal about past over you. I heard a great deal about who are you right now, what you're doing, but I didn't hear anything about who you would be or what are you offering. So you spoke everything about, hey, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but what are you offering? Right? So maybe speak a little bit about what are you offering in terms of what kind of projects, roles, or um, areas that you would be interested in, and why do you think you are great with any of those things?
Makes sense.
The
Okay.
past, future, present. That should be the flow,
Okay.
right? Like when we started in the beginning, I kind of asked you, like, why do you think we're here? And I kind of said the creditability of, like, oh, I'm a recruiter, I am a coach, and I've been doing it for a while. And what exactly I'll be doing is not telling you the answers, but then probably narrating the storytelling impact of it, right? And that's what exactly we did. So
Yeah.
just setting up an idea of like who I would be for you.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
All right. That's 20 minutes of feedback. So I'll take a pause. How do you feel?
I think, yeah, everything was on point. This is exactly what I was looking for. Because like you rarely hear from recruiters' standpoint, right? You hear from like some folks who have cracked the interviews and they'll be like, okay, include this and that. But I never really knew how the process works on the background or what kind of information when the recruiter tells me that, hey, I'm going to pass on your profile to the hiring manager. I don't know what they're going to pass on.
Yeah.
So that was really like interesting and like really important. I kind of learned like how to mix the right elements. And the example piece was totally on point. I personally feel I didn't give much examples. So
Yeah.
that's something I have to like basically, as you said, right, like make a long list and then when you feel like it, just like plug it in. So
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, and then the story, like, or the tell me about yourself, right? So it's more like a mental script I have, but then I was still thinking. So that's the reason I kind of when I have to practice it. And then some questions, right? So let's say like starting with this one, like tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
So I agree, like past, present, and then like what are your kind of how you're gonna like bring value. But hypothetically, let's say if I have a call schedule, I have like 15-20 minutes to like look up the company and like just go through the JD.
Absolutely.
Let's say if someone is just calling me randomly, I'm just doing some work, I receive a call on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
How would you like suggest me to answer that future part of it? Like um,
Yeah.
when you just know that okay, it's a PM position, but you're not really much sure like how to tackle that.
I think that's a great question. So what I would do is I would probably ask them that, hey, yeah, I applied for it because we didn't have a schedule call. I would love to hear a little bit more about what the company does. And, so that way I can also settle in and take a moment. And then I would love to hear about the company. If they give you that in the very beginning, that's fine. If they don't give it to you, then take a couple of minutes and then just go into Google and then put the search on it. If you don't have any of those, right? If you don't have one, if you can't ask them like, can you talk a little bit more about the company and their role? Second option would be go on Google, quickly search the name of the company and something would come up in the beginning, and those two liners would be more than enough for you to understand what industry, what work are they doing, right? Because if you applied, I'm assuming out of 50 application, you would kind of remember what this company does. But if none of that works out, third and the most important thing is just be generic about who you are and what are you offering. So I heard you, like I said, I heard you say a lot about what have you done, what kind of projects and everything. Third piece can be, this is what I'm offering in terms of this is who I am. So I'm a TPM who works with data. I'm a TPM who works in terms of collaboration, and I think I am great when it comes to ambiguous or challenging situation because I love having those tough conversation where there is a piece of conflict management because I'm great with people. So now I don't you don't care what industry I'm from, right? Any
Yeah,
industry, I would love to have someone who's great with technical aspect and the collaboration aspect of it, right? So if you
yeah.
don't know that, then have this generic lines of why do you think you are the greatest? Forget about the industry and the company.
Makes sense. Yeah.
No?
I think, yeah, that totally makes
That is
sense. I
it.
was just,
But now when we're talking about it, I think I asked you the very end of it, why are you looking for a new role? I
yeah,
forgot,
yeah, yeah,
right? I love that you spoke about that you have this growth ceiling right now, and then you're looking for something more challenging, right? I didn't understand why did you say that it has been 2 years, but it looks like 4.5 years.
Okay. So I was just like referring to the fast moving culture at Amazon, right? Or
Okay.
like the overall take, like move fast, break things kind of mindset. So
Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. I would have loved to also hear about how you love the company, how you
hmm,
love the people you work with, and then go about it as as much as I love the company and the area and the projects that we work on, I feel like that my career trajectory has more to give in, and I really feel like that my growth has plateaued, or I have like I've touched the ceiling in terms of growth, and I've had these conversations with my manager and in fact my TPM as well, and I'm trying to understand um what it looks like. I am, and then say it if you are. I'm also looking for an internal move within Amazon, but I also understand that there is so much more in the outside market that has changed, and I would definitely want to take an opportunity there as well. So now, what you're doing that even if you're changing families, you're talking great deal about the current family, current company. And
yeah,
then what you're trying to say is that I don't fit in, and that's okay because I want to move. And that's the very, very human and basic thing to do, right? You're not fitting in, you thinking about your career and growth, and then you can probably say that there is nothing more I can contribute to what they're already working on, and I think I really want to be part of something very innovative. And that's again your way of shining that, talking about the company. So you can be like, I want to be I want to be somewhere where there are like innovations happening, or X project is happening, and I think your company is kind of a pioneer in that, and I want to be a part of that. So now that kind of, and probably during that time, I'm assuming you will have some time to look at the company and the project, and then you can like very quietly pitch in that why this company is important for you. So you moved from why this company is important, where your career trajectory is going, and why this company kind of fits in that trajectory.
got it. Okay, that's a very good approach. Yeah,
It's just a flow because now you're like, listen, I'm talking great about my company. I'm talking great about my work because, listen, I have touched a ceiling. That means I'm growing. And now I want this growth to happen in your company because your company is doing great. So you're touching all the perspectives in there.
yeah. I think I definitely missed the like kind of talking good about Amazon or the current company part. Like I just said, okay, I've missed my like or basically hit my ceiling, but I kind of missed that point because and then like I think internal transfer is a very good leverage because a lot of times these candidates are like coming up with three or four competing offer letters, and you read post on like Reddit that how they were able to increase their salary. So I think
Yes.
and then internal transfer usually I think it's my perception it's a bit easier than external one. So
Yeah.
you're kind of putting some pressure on, I don't know, like the recruiter as well that hey, move fast.
Of course. And you any which way saying that you have other interviews and other companies that you're speaking with, but they already know that you have nothing to lose if you don't move forward in this one, right? Because you
Yeah,
already have internal calls that you're thinking, and then you already had Amazon, so you don't have to worry about anything else.
yeah,
But that being also said, then you can always be like, I like your company because of this. Because in the if you we talk a lot more about how I have all the opportunities, I don't have to worry about this. They're just gonna be like, then don't sit here, like because then you don't value us enough to be a part of us. But
yes,
then
yeah,
you have to find like a balance of like, why do I value you more? And then why do I really value this conversation and your time as well? So kind of a balance on that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions that I can answer?
Um, I think let me see. Mhm.
Any other question that you think is like challenging for you to answer? Like I asked one of them out of blue today, most challenging part of you being a TPM. Is
Yeah.
there any other question that you've been like in the past was like, I had to think a lot about it?
Yeah, yeah. So let me think of one such question. Mhm. Oh, yeah. So let's say if it's a bit more, I would say a broader question like, okay, what do you find challenging in your work, right? There
Hmm.
you have like a lot of options. Like you can decide, okay, what I want to present, and then that's where you have more kind of you hold the narrative that hey, this is what's challenging for me. But
Right.
I was curious. Let's say if someone asks you very project specific questions,
Hmm.
and then like given that it's a TPM interview, right? I'm just thinking about like probably one next round.
Yeah.
They're asking like, okay, what was the most challenging part in this part of like, or while you're working on PRD?
Hmm.
Basically, anything super specific.
Hmm.
Like what flow would you suggest to answer those? And like thinking of a scenario where you're not like super prepared, like suddenly you're talking with someone who's super technical, probably they are the TPM themselves, and
Yeah.
they ask you like, hey, what was the most challenging part where you're working on PRDs?
Right.
So like, what is a good flow to answer those?
Okay, and then because you here, I'm assuming you already know the star method, right? So I'm not
Yeah,
going to get into it, right? So whenever anybody asks you any specific example related question, one definitely start with making them understand what that project is. If they already know, assuming they already know if they are a technical person themselves, recruiter would not know it, so you'll have to find a different route to explain it to them. But if they're a technical person, then just explain a little bit about like let's say three sentences. You explain that what the project is and why was that project or that project was actually involved in this quarter, or why do you start doing it, why does this project matters to the company or the team. Give
got
that lay down first, right? Then second, talk about the challenges, that what exactly the challenges are, either for the team or for yourself. Whenever they are asking for any project related challenges, I would really say try doing that for the team rather than bringing it up for yourself. So like if
it.
I'm saying that you said PRD, right? So if they said like what's the most challenging part about being, a TPM at PRD, then you can be like, oh, this is this, or this is like collaborating with different teams and making sure that all the documentations are up to the par. And I know that as a TPM, this is all what I need to do, but this is all what I am doing, and I'm trying to implement the other things, right? So whenever a challenge comes related to a specific project, try saying that it's a challenge for the team, for the project, not for me, right?
Makes sense.
Because then what will happen, you'll take a step back and you'll start trying to solve it rather than being in the middle of it. So just close your eyes and think that as a mindset, that if you are in the middle of a problem, then you think about your solution first and then you think about anybody else's solution, correct? But
Yeah,
if you take a step back and make it a problem of the project and the team as a whole, then you're like, oh, why don't we try doing this? Because now you don't have to worry about your own problems. You're actually
yeah.
worried about the whole team's solution. um
Mm,
Yes, so talk about that in terms of this is what the team is, worried about, and this is what I initiate. Now, what has happened? You made the challenge as a team's challenge, and then you made the solution as you have initiated it, right? You don't have
yeah.
to explicitly say that, oh, I did that. You can be like, oh, during a brainstorm session, I thought of this and I shared it with my team, and then we started implementing and executing that. We were again on a trial basis for this one. We wanted to document everything for the future. Whenever anybody talks about a challenging, a mistake, or a learning, always talk about how you've been documenting everything so that it can be a learning in the future. That
Mm,
shows your foresightedness, that, oh, as a leader, this guy actually is not only thinking about solving things right now, but they're also thinking about what can be done better for the future. And then of course the last thing of like, if it worked well, talk about it worked well. If it didn't work well, talk about that also, that when we were implementing things, we realized that this has blah 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 flaws. We had to redo the whole thing, and I had that tough conversation with the management because I wanted to take full responsibility. I initiated that solution. So I wanted to take full responsibility. I had that conversation and I brought that back to my team. And then we started plan two, which was that. And then from there, this is what happened. So the
makes
impact,
sense.
the learning, the growth. And then the fourth and last thing, you can always be like that. Only once in a while in your career, you actually get such challenging projects, which actually make you question your own capabilities, but then also make you learn so much. So I think I'm glad that I got this opportunity. Now, what you did is like you settled all the spices with that 1 teaspoon of ghee and be like, it's all well, but I got to learn so much, and I'm so glad I'm a part of it.
Makes sense. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I think that was the framework I was looking for. So yeah, thank you.
That's good. I explained it in 4 minutes. There is no way you can take 4 minutes to explain it. You've got to do it within 2.5 and 3 minutes.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I think yeah, those are all the questions I could think of. So I like your approach that like rather than focusing on one question, I got insights about like how to handle that flow, and then that way
Yeah.
you're able
100%. Because, like I said, there are like thousands of behavioral questions. I think day before yesterday, I posted 50 behavioral questions on my LinkedIn, like as a PDF. And a lot of people are like, there's so much more. And I was like, so many more you can't even think of, but I don't want to put it on LinkedIn. They're like, there might be thousands of them, right?
yeah,
So it's the framework that you need to know rather than knowing each answer. You just need to understand, like I said, three viewpoints: your viewpoint, team's viewpoint, and company's viewpoint. And then you just mix it up.
cool. Can I ask a one quick question? I know we are out of time.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay, it's fine.
I just want to know if you can just briefly answer. It's not about flow, but I was always curious because so far I have not taken interviews within Amazon. So I know a lot of these companies will have 4 or 5 rounds, and they'll have that debrief at the end,
Yeah,
where everyone presents their notes. So as you said, right, like as a recruiter, these are the things you focus on,
yeah,
and like these are the things I should highlight. So I'm just thinking like the next step. And let's say if I'm talking with some other folks,
yeah.
you know what kind of notes they will be taking, or like what are the some of the points they'll be presenting, so I'm able to present that in my answers.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, but that depends on two or three things. Maybe one, what the team is actually looking for, right? So team already has a culture, has something. Where do you fit in? So am I looking for someone who's great with collaboration, communication, or am I looking for someone who's technically very sound? I don't care about anything else. So that would be one. Second
Okay.
would definitely be if you are coming from a very specific project that the team is looking for. So for an example, if you're going to Spotify, right, I would definitely want to mention that you are from Amazon Music, and then whatever projects that you've done in Amazon Music. So figure out what industry and what kind of role that you are, applying to, and then what would matter to them more. Third would always be if you've done some great projects which has been highlighted by the news, by the company, or it's a running project and you've been a part of that. 100% that, because people would know about that. So there can be two viewpoints here. One, something that was extremely important for your career because you learned a lot. One that was not so important for your career, you didn't learn a lot, but it is highlighted. It's a brand project for the team, for the company, and the world knows about it. I would probably say share about the latter, and then try glorifying your work. Even if the only thing that you did was like sign a document or create one document, you just
Yeah,
glorify who knows what you did, right? You can actually just glorify saying that this is all what I did, because now the recruiter doesn't have to put in efforts to remember that specific project. They can just be like, oh, do you remember about that project in that industry? The person has been a part of that, so I think they'll be a great fit. Just like
perfect. Yeah.
that, right? Again, you're just playing with the mindset of what do you want them to remember and how impactfully you land it to them, like you share it with them.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and thanks a lot for taking that extra answer. And
Yeah, no
yeah,
worries.
this was really nice. I learned a lot of things, and I'm just going to practice right away, start implementing. Yeah.
Okay, I'm so glad. And if you have questions, you know where to find me. We've been connected. If you're not, then let's just connect on LinkedIn if you're not already. But and then I'm pretty sure these people have a way if you want to reach out to me as well. So good luck. I know you'll get
Sounds
something sooner than later.
sounds
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Usman. Have a great day. Bye.
Have a good one. Yeah. Bye bye.